Hey y'all, it's Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis on kind of a cloudy, dreary day here in Texas, but that's good. That means that there's moisture in the air and hopefully rain falls. But today I've got some blooms that I want to show you. So a couple weeks ago I showed you some blooms, including this Ludemaniana, this rubra that's still cranking. Those flowers still look great 3 weeks later, I think. But I've got some other ones. I've got, and I'm pointing over here, I've got a Cattleya tigrina that's blooming. Usually that blooms for me in summertime, so to have it blooming in mid-March is weird, but you know, appreciated. And then I have Cyrtopodium virescens, which is a species that's not commonly grown. And then I have a Cattleya nobilior coerulea that I have back in the grow tent at home, and I will show you all that. But let's get the camera turned around and check these out. All right, so we have the tigrina here and the Cyrtopodium over here. So like I said, the tigrina is, as I guess, out of season. But you can see it's really cool looking, and man, this is one of the most potently fragrant orchids I think that are out there. And you know, I'm like a little more than arm's length away from it, and I can smell it all the way over here, and not just like a little bit. It's very strong. So I'm a scent fiend. I love if a flower doesn't have a scent, there's a good chance that I'm not going to buy it or include it in my collection. And this one is definitely one of the most, if you're a scent fiend like me, this is one you want in your collection. If you have the space, you can see that this thing is big. You know, it's in the same size pot, I believe. No, it's actually in a smaller pot than my gigantic Amethyst glossa. So this is in a smaller pot, but you can see it's cranking out new roots all over the place. It's a super happy plant. It is just absolutely attached to the side of this pot, and it seems to be growing around the side of the pot, which is super cool. It's got a new growth here, and then of course the flowers themselves, you know, like with most of the bifoliates, super waxy, like plastic, hard plastic feeling. I've got some happy sap here. If my hands weren't dirty, I would have just licked it off because that's delicious. And then this really intensely, I guess almost an amethyst colored lip, or at least a deep magenta. And then the spots on the petals and sepals are really cool. The contrast between the brown and the pink lip is really cool. And then, you know, you just think about the intense fragrance, and it really is a great plant. Still, nonetheless, I think I'm going to sell this one. As far as tigrina goes, it's nice looking, but it's not great. It is a huge space hog, and space at my house is at a bit of a premium. So I'll probably end up selling this one. I am a little hesitant, and you know, this is one of those ones that I might look back on this in a year and say, man, why did I sell that? But it is what it is, and I really do need to make more space for bringing my orchids back home. Now over to the Cyrtopodium virescens. So Cyrtopodium is interesting in their bloom habit, because what they do is they start a new growth and then simultaneously start a spike that goes up and up and up and all the way up to here. And I was hoping that this would be more open when I showed y'all, but there's enough open flowers that you can see what this looks like. And the flowers are cool. You know, they're each individual flower is very small, much smaller than punctatum, and punctatum is smaller than St. Ledrianum. So this is a fairly small flowered Cyrtopodium species, but you can see it puts out a big flush of flowers. So when these are all open, this will be a pretty cool bloom. I'm trying to figure out the angle where you can see the color the best. I think it's probably from this side. Like I said, it's real cloudy, so There's not a whole lot of great light coming in. This is my first bloomer of the season from all of my Cyrtopodiums. This one is always going first. So then next would be St. Ledranum if I still had that one. I've sold that one. And then next would be Punctatum. And then after that, there's a few others that would bloom as well, typically. And so, like most Cyrtopodiums, it is terrestrial, so I grow it in a mix of 50-50 sand and peat moss. And then this one really hasn't gotten a whole lot of water since probably November. I give these just as hard of a winter rest as I do to the Cattleya, and they seem to do just fine. I don't know that there's as much of an issue with waiting to water until the roots are a certain length as you have with Cattleya. I'll probably start watering this one, I don't know, in 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll just pour it on and basically keep it wet the whole time. So, interesting species. I might sell this one as well, just because it's tricky. For me personally, since this one will bloom, it needs full sun, and I'm actually surprised that it's blooming in here because there is a 50% shade cloth on this greenhouse. But so this one would be growing in a grow tent for me next year, and then the bloom spike would come up, and ideally it would be outside, but this time of year is really sketchy for weather here in Texas. It can be 90 one day and, close to freezing the next day. So I've had this one outside when it gets cold, and the flowers typically just fall off. So the flowers themselves are cool. I like them. The species is interesting. It's not a huge space hog, but it's just an awkward one for me, so I'll probably end up selling this one as well. And I don't know why. You can see that the inflorescence went up and then kind of made this beeline over there to the right. I don't know why. What's also interesting is that this branch here went the opposite direction. So I haven't touched this plant except to show you in the video. So something happened that the plant wanted to grow in this direction for flowers, and then in the opposite direction for a different part of the spike. Weird creatures. And then the next one that I'm going to show is in the grow tent at home. So let's take a look over there. All right, here we are back at the tent with a Cattleya nobilior, and this is a coerulea variety, as you can see, in full bloom. And it's pretty cool. This is not a particularly common variety of nobilior in the United States. In fact, I think there's only a handful of sources where you can get a coerulea Cattleya nobilior. Francisco Miranda has them occasionally, and H&R does some breeding with them. But that's about it. Here in the U.S., I think otherwise you have to import them. That said, I'm hurting for space, and I don't think this makes the cut. So I'll probably sell this one too. Now that I think about it, all 3 of the plants that I showed today, I'll probably end up selling, even though they're fairly nice, but they just they're not nice enough. And that's one of the problems of being a species snob, is you get to see all the breeding, the line breeding, especially in Brazil, and you get spoiled. You get a certain expectation in your mind of what you want to see, and your plants don't show it, and so you gotta sell them. But again, this is one that I was not expecting to bloom this year since I repotted it. Cattleya nobilior typically only blooms when it has a massive root system in a super big, healthy pot. Not a super big, healthy pot, but an appropriately sized pot, but with lots and lots of roots. Typically well established is what I'm trying to say. This one, being less than a year into repotting, is not well established and put out 2 spikes with 2 flowers on each, which is, not a super strong bloom, but way more than I was expecting. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you're having a great weekend. I will talk to you later. Bye.